History tells us not to hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, a long before tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history run. So hope for a great sea change, and believe the further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing ways. And like the Lockleys in that story, people with disabilities, our sons, our daughters, our neighbors, people unknown to us, await us to discover their gifts, to harness their abilities, and most importantly, to value their contribution. In our case, people like Angie, you saw her in the film. She has cerebral palsy. Went through undergraduate, paid 1B, the rest A's. Went to graduate school, all A's. Sent out 400 resumes, had 30 interviews. And she said everyone was the same. When you're dealing with paper, she was great. She walked in, and every time she walked in, she had the same experience. She saw in people's face, all they tried to hide it. Oh my God. 30 interviews, not a single job. We hired her. She's in charge of HR in that building, and she is fantastic. We are lucky to have her. This young man has autism. Now, James and I were talking before, when we opened up this building, we had to have a workforce that was going to be ready, and we didn't have a building. So the community created a training center. They rented a little small warehouse, and we gave them some equipment. And they brought people in the community and trained them very similar to what we're talking about here at Turning Point. Here's a place where people can come up to their own speed. Harrison was in that center a year, and a lot of these people came and worked a year on their own time just for the possibility of getting an interview and being hired. Harrison was one of those. Came out of the school system, he has autism, he's verbal. I met him the first time, I was walking through, and he says, Randy, I can receive 10 cases a minute. That's what Harrison does now. He wanted to be a lift truck driver. We were going to let him be a lift truck driver, but he decided he didn't want to do that. He said, I can receive 10 cases a minute. I said, Harrison, that's great. But we don't measure things in minutes. We measure things in hours. So how many cases can you receive in an hour? That would be 10 times 60. I said, how much is 10 times 60? He goes, I don't know. Now, I know it's 600. And I know our standard is 400. And here's a young man that can do 150% of expectation, but can't multiply 10 times 60. And he's on the dock today. And he's one of the top performers we have. We're lucky to have Harrison. But this is a young man, it's not as good, the lighting's different. This is our Puerto Rico DC, which is one of our older DCs. And I carry this name, the gentleman's name is Hyman. He works on the receiving dock. He's our #1 receiver and our most efficient lift driver and our safest lift driver. And he's deaf. Doesn't hear a thing. And a lot of people will not hire deaf lift drivers. We have 58 in our system. And they're our safest group of lift drivers. People say lift drivers can't hear. Well, they can't know if their horns works. Well, that's not necessarily true, because we found one lift driver, and you go, by the way, people with disabilities have figured out a lot of things on their own. We don't have to figure it out. The question is, how do you know your horn works? One gentleman told us, I put my hand here and I honk the horn, I feel the vibration. Another man said, here's what I do. I pull up around a group of people that can't hear. And when they're not looking, I honk and see who jumps. And we're lucky to have that. And there are over 1,000 in our system like it. And there's actually probably thousands in our stores that we don't even know about because they're afraid to disclose. After we opened up, I had a young man from, young man, he's an old man. He's probably 50. He says, I was here when the building opened. I went to special ed. I cannot read. I've never been able to read. Every time there was a form to fill out at the distribution center, I told people I lost my glasses and they filled it out for me. Because I was afraid if I told people I couldn't read, I wouldn't be able to have a job. Because that's on the job requirement that you have to read. There's people like that who are afraid. Now, by the way, accommodations we have, most of our accommodations are less than $25 and are paid for visit. People said, what are you going to do when you fire people? Yeah, we fire people. We fire people with disabilities. We fire people without disabilities for different reasons. That's, those things go on and on. So, when it gets to us, and I've been thinking about why do people with disabilities have such a problem getting jobs? What is it about us employers? Now, my first thing is different between this group is because you're aware. But most people just aren't aware. I mean, when you have a child, it's kind of life hits you right on the side of the head. Oh, there's going to be something that we're going to do here. I was made aware of that way. But most of us go through life just fending off the rocks of everyday living. You really don't have to look up. Everybody's trying to get, fix their world. It's even busier now. Don't hear, don't see. It's mostly ignorance, not intentional. We just don't see. And then even if we do see, I think the other side of that is fear. Because when I look at the decisions that I regret, I don't regret ones that were choose this or choose that. The decisions I regret are the ones that I made out of fear. Fear has kept me quiet when I should have spoken. It's kept me still when I should have acted. Fear that I will fail. Fear that I will look dumb. Fear that I will lose status. Fear that it won't work. On and on and on. When fear makes us small. It makes us shrink from the world. Marianne Williamson wrote an essay about fear. And I can't say that I'm that good a reader, but I did see it in Coach Carter, that movie, when they quoted it, and I looked it up. And it said, what is our deepest fear? Does anybody remember that movie? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light that frightens us, not our darkness. And we all say, I'm just one person, what can I do? I'll tell you a story. I was in San Francisco getting ready to go out to our center in Sacramento. And I knew it was going to be a long drive, about a 2-hour drive. So preparing a good plan, and I said, well, I need to go to the bathroom first before I get in that car. So I went down this long hall. It's probably twice as long as this area here. Long hall, and the men's room was on the left. See how I can remember where men's rooms are, wherever I've been. I can't remember my neighbor's name, but I can remember where I was. And so at the end of the hall, there's a shoe shine stand. Now, it's easy to duck a shoe shine guy at the airport because there's a lot of other people walking by. So it's easy to do. But when you're the only person there, it's hard to duck him. So I came out of the washroom, and he was telling me what sorry state of shoes. Okay, I got time, so I sit down and start shining my shoes. And he and I are about the same age. And his name is Alan Feaster. I asked him his name. His name is Alan Feaster. I said, how long have you been doing this? And he said, well, I've been doing this about 25 years. Wow. Thinking about retirement? A little chit-chat. He says, yeah. Well, what are you going to do? He said, well, I think I'm going to change the California penal system. Now, on the list of things I was thinking about activities, that would have been in my top 25. So he goes on to tell me a story. He says, I had 5 children. I had a son named Darrell, who at 14, he got in trouble with the law and ran with a bad crowd. He got sentenced to the California Youth Authority, which is for young offenders, ages 14 to 21. And Darrell was sentenced there with his best friend, and they were in there a month, and they were discovered hanged there at that facility. And I know my son did not kill himself, even though that was the investigation's result that he did. I know that he and his friend had too much of a desire for living. I think there's something wrong putting in boys in with men, a 14-year-old with a 21-year-old. And I need to change that. We need to change that. So he pulled out this notebook of all these newspaper clippings. And one of those was him testifying before the California legislature. And it showed him all at these rallies and everything else. A man who shines shoes for a living. And I went home and Googled it. 697 references. a man who shines shoes for a living, who has less power than any of us in this room, is doing that. So the question is, will hope and history run? Will we reach out one day and grab all those on the margins and break it into the world? We all have a part to play in that. Hope doesn't happen without our hands, our voices, our passion, our participation, our talents. That's up for each of us. Now for our part, what we're doing, we realize this is not about a competitive advantage. This is about community. This is more important than us. So we've thrown our doors open. Anybody who comes to us, bring an employer to us. Let them experience for themselves. You come, see for yourself what an inclusive environment is. Side by side, same pay, same standards. See the spirit of the place. A lot of companies have. And a lot of companies are developing their own programs. Lowe's started 2 years ago. They already have 300 people in their distribution centers, all throughout their system. Best Buy built an e-commerce site in Louisville. 30% of the people there have a disability. You talk to their management, they have the same story. They've taken what we did, crafted it to their own. Just like OfficeMax is doing. Larry's been down there at Anderson. Going to be a great partner. What they're doing, LL Bean is going through. We also conduct food camps. Here's what we say. Come here and spend the day, talk to management, see what this can be. Then we say, bring your management. Bring all their fears, like James said. Bring all the stigma, all the fears. Bring all that down, and we'll do a boot camp, whether it be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Some of these companies, we've done 2 boot camps. Work out on the floor. Do a job accommodation. What are the issues? Back and forth. LLB is doing one in January. We want to see them. P&G came down twice. Didn't they come twice? They opened up their tampon plant in Maine. There's 25% of people with disabilities. Marks & Spencer, one of the biggest retailers in the UK, is doing the same thing. Colgate, Sears, Clark Shoes. Meyer has 175 people now. TJ Maxx, they're doing a better job at retail than we're doing, but we're doing a better job in distribution centers, so we're exchanging. Futura is a huge company in Brazil, and there's more. Our doors are open. What is ours is yours. We do not have all the answers. We do not pretend to have all the answers. Take what we have, craft it into your own. Your cultures are different than ours. Challenges will be different. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's just the best thing to do. So, in conclusion, will history and hope run? As for me, I choose to believe in miracles, and cure, and healing. I believe we, each of us, can make a huge impact on this world if we choose. And that time is now.